I want to jump into some stories that were very concerning to me, at least, over the weekend. Pope Francis and Nancy Pelosi meet at the Vatican. Now, what's interesting about this is just last week we were reporting Archbishop Corleone calling for prayer and fasting for the reversion of Mrs. Pelosi, as well as many other of our political leaders here in the United States, because of their public position and ardent support for abortion, which is a crime, which is an intrinsic evil, which, according to natural law, no matter what creed you profess, is always wrong. Because we all know, because it's built in every single human person, that murder is wrong. No matter who you are, where you come from on planet Earth, that still remains true. Murder is wrong. And so this was a very interesting headline to see, maybe, just maybe, this is a moment of great dialogue. Maybe this is that moment where you meet people where they're at, you smell a little bit like the sheep, and you encounter them and disciple them and help them on their journey to where they got to go. Well, praise be to God. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? We would love that. I mean, who wouldn't love to know that the Pope, the Vicar of Christ on earth, met with one of the most ardent pro-abortion supporters who claims to be Catholic, raised Catholic, but in complete denial and defying church teaching on this supreme issue of abortion, and helped her to overcome that and come back into the full communion with the church. That would be like utterly amazing. We would love that. Who wouldn't love that? I would love it. But let me read a little bit of this article from the Catholic News Agency. I'm sharing my desktop there, Adrian. Pope Francis met with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Saturday. At the time of publication, the Vatican had released no information about what the Pope and Pelosi discussed, in line with its usual custom of papal meetings with non-heads of state. At the time, okay, so we don't know what they talked about officially. There's no information there. Quote, but it noted the audience in its daily bulletin for October the 9th, saying that the House Speaker was accompanied by her husband, the businessman Paul Pelosi, and entourage. Photographs released by the Vatican showed that Pelosi also met with Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin and Foreign Minister Archbishop Paul Gallagher. The first Italian-American Speaker of the House was in Rome to give the keynote address at the opening session of the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit. She also met with the Italian Prime Minister. The day before her audience with the Pope, the 81-year-old discussed the environment, migration, and human rights during her visit to the Vatican. The Vatican Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development announced the visit on October the 8th in a post on its Twitter account. Pelosi was accompanied to the Vatican on Friday by Patrick Cardinal and the U.S. Embassy of the Holy See. On the same day, the White House announced that former U.S. Senator Joe Donnelly of Indiana is President Joe Biden's nominee for U.S. ambassador to the Holy See. Pelosi, a Catholic mother of 5, has clashed repeatedly with the Archbishop of her home diocese over her support for abortion. Archbishop Salvatore Corleone launched a prayer campaign last month aimed at inspiring a conversation of heart among politicians supporting abortion. Quote, a conversion of heart of the majority of our congressional representatives is needed on this issue, beginning with the leader of the House, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the San Francisco Archbishop said. He says, quote, I am therefore inviting all Catholics to join in a massive and visible campaign of prayer and fasting for Speaker Pelosi. Commit to praying one rosary a week and fasting on Fridays for her conversion of heart, unquote. Corleone urged Catholics and people of goodwill to sign up for the Rose and Rosary for Nancy Pelosi campaign. You can read the rest of it there, but here's what gets me. Now, we don't know. It's quite possible, because we don't know. We have no idea what their private conversation was. We can hold out hope, praise be to God, that the Pope, in his role as Vicar of Christ, as the pastor of souls on planet Earth, that he would have reached out to the most ardent, most notorious, or at least one of them, pro-abortion Catholics in America, let alone the world, and say, hey, listen, abortion, as you know, ends the life of an innocent child who has its own body, by the way. And it always loses. He doesn't get a say, a vote, an opinion. It doesn't get any of that. It just loses. So this is natural law. It is a big, huge, very serious issue. And as a Catholic, you should know that. You should know that. What do we need to do to bring you back in? What do we need to do to help you better understand this from a life perspective? Maybe they had that conversation. Maybe. I don't know. I somehow, I guess, doubt it. But maybe they had it, and I would love to hear that they did. Praise be to God. Wouldn't that be amazing if we heard that they had that conversation? How incredible would that be? I hope it doesn't go the other way, though. I hope that Archbishop Corleone doesn't get pressured and told to lay off of Nancy Pelosi or, Joe Biden or any of these others. I hope it doesn't go that way. But here's the other thing about Corleone that sort of sparks my interest. I love the fact that Corleone is calling for prayer and fasting for Nancy Pelosi and others. I think it's awesome. I think it's amazing. I think we ought to be doing that. But I also wonder, how far does this have to go before you decide that she's not going to listen? She has hardened her heart. She is resisting church teaching ardently, intentionally, and willfully. And therefore, an excommunication is now necessary as a last-ditch effort to loosen that hardened heart, to remove the stone and bring back the flesh in the hopes and goal of bringing her back into the church in full communion in good standing. I mean, at what point now? Joe, she's self-excommunicated when she takes this position. Okay, yes, that's true. However, this is a public scandal that deserves a public response. It's a principle. And at what point does the bishop, and why is the bishop so resistant to use this tool at his disposal for the salvation of souls? I'm just curious. We've heard this tool being used against people who would deny Vatican II. We've heard this tool being used elsewhere, but we haven't heard it being used against pro-choice Catholics who are ardent and resistant repeatedly for years and years. It's not new that Nancy Pelosi rejects this part of church teaching. It is not new. It's been around a long time. Joe Biden as well, and others. So at what point? I'm curious. Adrian, do you want to chime in?
One thing that I think is interesting to note is the fact that whenever Speaker Pelosi met with Benedict XVI about that was a long time ago at this point. I'm forgetting how long it's been since Benedict was Pope. But he refused to have a photo op with her because he wanted to emphasize the point. He didn't want to have a tacit approval for her position. They didn't want her to be able to use the fact that she is doing a photo op with the Holy Father as a campaign slogan, as a way to show, hey, look, I'm Catholic. I'm hanging out with the Pope. Right. And so this is it's very important. So yes, it is important for the Pope, the Holy Father, and the local bishops to meet with these politicians. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is important to note that they're going to use this kind of thing as a publicity tool, and do not give them the chance to use it as a publicity tool. Don't allow the photo ops and things like this. And it's not like they can just sneak in a camera. It's the Holy Father, for crying out loud.
No, the photographs have to be officially released by the Vatican themselves. Mm-hmm. So we don't know. We can hold out hope, and I would love to hear. Wouldn't it be amazing, praise be to God, to hear that, in fact, they had that conversation. I would just give God praise, and I would certainly sing the praises of Pope Francis for doing so. But call me the naysayer. Right. I just somehow doubt that that's the case.
Definitely. I think also one other thing that we should mention is that right before this happened, or immediately after this happened, allegedly she was heckled out of a church.
Yes, I heard that too.
I believe I have to go back and check. Bree Dale reported that this was actually not true. She was not heckled out of the church. She left due to the fact that
there were protesters.
There was protests nearby by, and her security detail had said that, this might be dangerous. Let's get her out of here.
Yeah.
And so she was not heckled out of the church, as some people were reporting.
The report that I heard this morning was that she left for exactly what you just said, for security reasons, because the protesters weren't there to protest her. They were there to protest the vaccine mandates.
Right, exactly. And so it's important to note that, because it's all over social media. It was trending. She was heckled out of the church. It was all over the place. So I just thought it was important to make that clarification.
Yeah. All right. Well, praise be to God. We'll be keeping an eye on this. And like I said, if something gets reported as to the nature of their actual conversation besides climate change, we'll let you know. But we're not holding our breaths a whole lot there.